Hey, it's Floss Reviews and it's time for Weepy Fest. It's me before you, or not Weepy Fest. But before we start talking about the serious one, I want to introduce you to a new person in my life, everybody. It's a new man. It's Peter. Peter the Pimple. Yes. Look right at it. Get it out of your system. Enjoy it. Peter the Pimple and I went on a date together and we saw Me Before You. You don't stop getting pimples when you're older. Sorry to break it to you. Me Before You, if you haven't heard, is the movie based on the book by Jojo Moyes, both of the same name. It's about Will Traynor, who is an London banker, finance, businessman person who is at the very beginning of both book and film struck down by a motorcycle in the street as he's crossing the street. And then we meet Louisa Clark, who is living a small life in a in a castle country town in London, in outer UK. She signs on to be Will's carer. He is very angry and bitter about his situation, and she is brought on to bring some light into his life. There is a deal that he has made that she learns of later, which she would learn of later in the film and book if you are reading or seeing or bothing them. This is kind of going to be maybe a little bit spoilery. If you want to be completely fresh and go into both book and or film with no anticipations, I maybe would steer clear of this review. There's some plot points, not specifically, but some bigger, larger themes and issues that I probably want to talk about for a little bit, and you might not want that. So, I have read the book. I read the book after they'd cast and announced the film, but not before any trailers dropped or anything. So it was a nice kind of, I had people in my mind, but not really. Did I enjoy them? I enjoyed the book a lot. I liked it. It was really, I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed Lou's wider world. She had a whole backstory that isn't brought into the film that I thought was, I get why they couldn't bring it in the film. It would tonally change a lot of what they were trying to achieve, and you've only got a very short runtime with these kind of things. But I do think it missed a lot of her dimensionality. She became in the film for me, a one-dimensional character who was this bright, sunny, bubbly, kindergarten-wearing person that didn't have, whose bravery wasn't, or lack of bravery wasn't really explained beyond not getting out. In the book as well, Will is also a bit more dimensional. He is a bit of a dick when we first meet him. Not even a bit of a dick, he is a dick. In the scene that's both in the film, it's exactly the same. He's in bed with a woman, but in his monologue, as he's thinking to himself, he's thinking about how he wants to break up with her, how she's a bit shallow, how he's got other people he wants to see. It's just a bit more, Will wasn't the nicest guy beforehand, whereas in this book, in the film, Will is just this told time and time again what a great guy he was beforehand and what a fantastic man he was, and even to the point where a guest at the wedding that they attend, which you see in the trailers, that's not a spoiler, sits next to Louisa and she knows Will previously and sort of says he was the only good one of those men. And it's just kind of, it sanctifies Will in a way that he didn't deserve, I think, as a character beforehand, but also it just makes the film's lack of Will for me not work. And what I mean by that is that I think, look, it's such a difficult thing to say. In the book, his choice to me was a lot more grey, in that I didn't understand. I didn't understand it. I understood it more, and I didn't necessarily agree with it. But there was a lot more. And there was probably more time to explore it. But in the film, he gave up without a fight, and considering he was asking and demanding of Lou constantly to fight for her life, to fight for more than she deserved. He was a character who had sort of said, well, I got one roll of the dice and it went badly for me on this occasion and that's it, I'm out. And the film for me struggled to, beyond a couple of brushes with his medical stuff and the struggles that he was going to face, really explain that. He was a man who was well off financially. He was able to move limbs and arms. He was able to move beyond just head. And while it was a lot more going to be a struggle for him, sure, the film didn't do enough of a job to compel me to have empathy for him in his choice. And by his choice, if you know the film, you know, and the book, you know what choice I'm talking about. The other thing I thought about the film, for a film that The other thing for both was that both have a very comparable storyline in terms of the primary goal of this was about a relationship between two people with one major medical affliction in the way, and it had a lot of parallels to The Fault in Our Stars. Now, I wept buckets in both book and film. Buckets in The Fault in Our Stars. Me Before You, I wept a bucket in the book. I was dry-eyed in the film. I found, and that's where I think the chemistry of Lou and Will in the book worked more because they had time to explore it, but also because I feel like in the film it was very frenzy brother and sister, and they never really addressed the fact that they actually loved each other, and they never really connected beyond she was his care and that's why. And they did, but I wanted more. I wanted to feel it and gut punch it. And even when I knew it was coming, and both I had similar experiences where I knew in The Fault in Our Stars it was coming. And even though it came, it still wrecked me. And I wasn't wrecked by this. Yeah, I sat there all the time thinking, I want the fight in both of these characters to be there. And it was there for me more in the book than it was in the film. And the fight for Will is a fight for choice, but it was a lot more elegantly done in the book, I would say. So I kind of was a little bit disappointed in Me Before You, the movie. I feel like unfortunately the parents' moments weren't really realised, and the mother at the end, the scenes that she talks about her disagreement with Lou about what's happening is almost distracting. I think they could have spent more time, whereas in the book, because you know these characters better, you understand why the mother stands on that position, what her faith is to her, and why it's such a terrible idea. Whereas in the film, I don't even think they acknowledged her faith beyond the fact that she was wearing a cross. And I don't think you need her to sit there and say, I'm a Catholic, Edith's wrong. But it just kind of, previously she'd just been a cheery, happy person who was in and out of the house. And you saw her for a cumulative 7 or 8 minutes. Whereas, and so when she got angry, you kind of went, who are you? What's your business in this? And I would have preferred to have spent more time with Lou and Will and her maybe getting into about his choice and him explaining it more, or them talking about their relationship more, or giving me more of a build to that so that when it was taken away, it meant more. I will admit that I am a lapsed, intermittent is best, Home and Away fan, but Brax, Steve Peacock, I would tune in for that. I tuned in for him. I was watching him. He's just got a really interesting charisma on screen that's incredibly male and masculine and incredibly kind of, I don't know, it's just weird. And I used to be on Home and I will have no shame in saying I used to watch Home and Away for Brax. When Charlie died, I cried when Charlie died on Home and Away, and I didn't cry in this. So, I will say I have also read the book After You, which is the sequel to Me Before You. Unless you absolutely adored Me Before You, I don't think it's a necessary read. I didn't end Me Before You going, I am desperate to know what happens next. I felt it ended enough open-ended that many people would have had different views about where Lou went. Where Jojo took her as an author was an interesting place for sure. I don't think it was a bad story. I just don't think it was necessary. And while the story and the new life that she's living and the new things that happen are interesting, they didn't, for me, bring anything to the characters. And in fact, they may have dulled a bit of some of the characters for me. And they even dulled Will's memory a little bit, in that what he stood for and the choices he made were dulled by the consequences that he left behind. So, yeah, have you read After You? Have you read Me Before You? Have you seen it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts on all of them. Again, then try and be light on the spoilers without saying too much. Use vague terms and I'll get what you're saying. I feel you. We'll get it. But yeah, Me Before You. It's out in cinemas now. The book Me Before You is also available, as is the book After You, also available. You'll see me next time, hopefully, without my new boyfriend, Peter the Pimple.